Hello Svenn-gers, it's me Svenny McG. Now if you've been following along, you've noticed I've covered a lot of Nintendo 64 peripherals. Today we're going to look at the video connection that came with it, the AV multi-out official Nintendo product. Now one of the things that has come to my attention in speaking with local shop owner Mike Turcotte at Vintage Games N Junque, check out the link below, and also talking with one of our friends DK. They were telling me that some people are having issues hooking up some of these classic systems. Now, looking at that, there are some modern incompatibilities with current TVs. We'll take a look and see if we have any solutions. But what I want to do is show the process of just hooking it up to a retro TV, perhaps a more modern TV, and see if any of these are helpful. Because you know what? It's fantastic that people are still looking at the Nintendo 64 and some of these retro consoles. Maybe this is even before your time. Maybe you didn't grow up with the system like us and some others did. And you know what? That's fine. There's no gatekeeping here. It's great that you're here checking out some of these retro classics. So by all means, today we're going to look at the cabling, and we're going to go through a quick process of hooking it up. Let's check it out. The Nintendo multi-out. Now this product here was featured with the Super Nintendo, but was again repeated on the Nintendo 64 and then finally on the GameCube. By the GameCube version, you actually started to see a black adapter here, but you can still see the Nintendo insignia on it. And again, there's no difference here. We're still talking the three cables, just a black head on it, but you know what? Doesn't matter. All the same stuff inside. So what's going on here? You have previously with the original Nintendo and then with Super, etc., you would see the radio frequency, the RF, and that was the one that had the coaxial screw onto the back, and then you had to set it channel 3-4. Now that was a one single input that was wide standard at the time and would give you audio and visuals. However, it kind of bled together and would make it sometimes murky. By the time this standard was coming around and we started getting home VCRs, this was actually separating video with the yellow and audio. You had your white and your red here. And what this was actually bringing was both your left and right speakers, giving you stereo sound. So by having this multi-out used, you're actually getting better audio, not just using a mono single channel that RF frequently provided, but you were actually, because you weren't sending just one signal through to the television, your video quality actually was improved by not degrading by sending along an audio signal as well. So just know that this is obviously not as strong as any of the modern digital ones such as HDMI, but it is certainly a better option than using RF. And RF is available on the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, and the GameCube. So this is certainly a better option. Just keep that in mind. Let's have a look at hooking them up. So here on a Super Nintendo, you can see here is the multi-out port, and then this is the RF. This uses the same connection found on your original Nintendo system that plugs into that coaxial screw. And you can see the channel 3 and channel 4 is actually right here on the system. So you set that prior to plugging in. And then of course, this is your power. So looking at that multi-out, again, the tab is on the top and you're just going to slide it right in. Now the Nintendo 64, if you've seen some of the other videos, I'll put some links below. I've shown other versions of RF availability, but all of them go through the multi-out. There's not a secondary port like you saw on the Super Nintendo. Regardless, all your options have to go again through this one multi-out, this being your power adapter. Finally, here on the GameCube, again, you can see this is the digital AV out. We're going to look at this again in another video, but for now, here's your power, and again, there's that analog AV out. Analog meaning not digital. That's where this is going to come into play later. Again, plug it in there, and now we can plug it right into the television. Now this CRT here, cathode ray tube television, is a Sony Trinitron, and many people regard it as one of the better retro TVs to use in today's standards. Now one of the great things of this television here, this Sony Trinitron, is the number of inputs. You can see there are a bunch here, and in fact we've got not only 1, 2, or 1, 3, and 4 here, but number 2 is on the front of the television as well. And you can see we actually have monitor outs. So we can go out here, audio outs here, maybe to a speaker system. And of course, we've got some of our RFs as well. So we can actually hook up 4 separate devices here under different formats, including Composite, which is our multi-out cabling here, RF, and here we even have Component with the 3. So again, another format we'll look at another time. For today, now that we have the multi-out plugged into the back of our console, we're going to put the colors. And this was the nice thing about this design later, was here we want to go to video 1. So we're going to go with the yellow, and then we want our sound. So we're going to have our left going in here, left channel, and red, we're going to have our right channel in. And again, that's going to give us the stereo sound by having the 2 separate channels here, left speaker, right speaker, as opposed to 1 speaker or mono. So here, we're going to have the video come through, and again, that's all there is to it. All right, that's a retro CRT TV, but what about something a little more modern? Well, here is a 42-inch LG TV, 42LE5300. And this TV was manufactured in 2011. So let's have a look at some of the inputs here. So here you can see, again, things are a little bit more varied. We have our HDMIs, you have your RGB in. So again, you can use like a VGA television or PC input. And then here, of course, we've got our components. We've got that AV again. We've got our antenna cable. So again, we're going to have an RF. And then we actually have some others that we're going to look at here, and some HDMIs, some USBs. So again, things are really ramping up here, but for our intents and purposes here, we're looking at much the same thing. Again, Nintendo 64, we're going to use these 3 colors and we're going to plug it right in. We're going to go AV1 and we're going to plug in our video. We're going to plug in our left mono audio, monaural, and we're going to plug in our right red cabling connection there. That's AV in. And what we're going to do when we want to see this on the television is view AV in 1. So very important, make sure you're turning your audio, your AV inputs to the proper channel in order to capture the device you're using. All right, Svenny, we get it. Put the colors in the colors, we got it. But what if my television doesn't have AV on it? What am I going to do then? What if I do not see these direct connections right in the back of my television here? Well, keep an eye, because there are some other options available, and here's one that I've seen on a lot of LG televisions from around this turn. That would be this cabling right here. Now, what we have is these 3 connections, female connections here, are all going to come down to this one, basically phono stereo looking jack. And by the 3 bands here, as best my understanding, someone please let me know in the comments below, but you're basically able to convert the 3 into 1 input. And that's when you see something like this here on the side. Now here from the other angle, you can see, again, it says component, and it shows your yipper, and it shows, and your AV video audio coming in here. So this here again is the phono jack. We're going to plug this right in here, just like so. And once that has a solid connection, guess what's going to happen? You're going to line the colors up again. You're going to slot them in. And just like that, you now have the connection going back into your television. Again, using those AV cables. And just like that, your Nintendo 64 is hooked up, this time on this television, now using AV2. All right, and lastly, this is an RCA 4K television. Hi guys! And what we're going to do is we're going to hook up our system to this. Now when we start up the television, we get this classic blue screen here indicating no signal. And this is just the default. What we can do is we can look at our inputs, and here we can see TV, AV, audio visual, and of course we see component HDMIs, etc., as well as down to USB media player. We're going to want to capture, again, using our Nintendo 64, our multi-out, for our Super Nintendo, for our GameCube, we're going to want to go to that AV input. But today we're going to look and see that this television is kind of missing something. Alright, so you can see up in the top here we have a 43-inch LED ultra high definition television. This does 4K output. So again, looking here, you have your optical. This is for the sound, and we have a left and right. Now this is one thing, let's get this out of the way. Unfortunately, RCA's designed everything straight down, which is good when you're just trying to synchronize, but when you're trying to make those connections and you're reaching underneath, it's a little bit of a pain. So just bear with me as we go through. But we have our component here, and then we've got our HDMI 1, 2, 3, 4, and an RF on the side here, as well as USB. Okay, trying to lay things perfectly flat here and without damaging the television. Again, this is what we're looking at from that side angle, is here's all our output. But one notable thing right away is, where did our yellow go? Well, again, let's look at what we actually have here color-wise. We've got our red, whites, green, blue, and another red. But if we look at the coding here, this is where we're going to have our composite cables. And actually what you can see is there's the /Y here. So we'll analyze this input in another video, but today what we're going to note is with that Y there, we can plug our yellow directly into the green input. And then we've got our left and right. So note that even though there are two reds, we're going to go with the R, not for red, but for right, as opposed to the PR over here. That's going to be our sound. That's actually another video input. And then this is going to be our left or monaural going in. And that's how we're going to get it on our modern television. Alright, so we're back here. We have no signal going on. We have our N64. We have the cables plugged into the back. We have the N64 on. We're going to change the input. We're going to go up to AV, where we have those 3 cables. And let's check it out. Pokemon Stadium 2. Now you can see it looks a little bit washed out, a little bit grainy. But again, we are using a digital TV and an analog input. So that's why a lot of people like using some of the retro TVs. But the point of today's exercise is to show we can do it here, even on an ultra high def 4K television, by making sure we're using those inputs. Now, if you're HDMI only, again, we're going to need another solution. But as for today's example, it is possible. Now I have to have the audio off to make sure I don't get any copyright strikes from YouTube. But what we are going to do quickly is we're going to go into the menu of this television here, and we're going to go down to advanced settings, and we're going to go to aspect ratio, and we're going to change it. We can go from wide, we can zoom it in a little bit, cinema, but what we want here is normal. And normal aspect ratio is going to kind of put us closer to a 4:3, which is actually going to make things look more the way they did on a base system. So you can see it actually looks pretty clean there. The words read very well. And again, this is just that audio visual cable that comes with your stock Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and GameCube system. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you do, please leave a like, leave a comment below. If there's anything else you'd like to see, or you have any comments or suggestions, as always, just reach out. I appreciate it, and thanks again for watching. As always, take care and be good to each other. Bye now.